Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we're about to get started with round 24 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. But as always, a word from our sponsors.
At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. Your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESInet goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Here in Greenville County, we have 8 different places where a 911 call can be answered.
It is the largest county in South Carolina. It's a challenge.
The type of information that a telecommunicator gets from Radius Plus is location-based technology. You can see where the caller is, if they have a medical issue, if they speak a different language. They're immediately able to text to that caller in their native language. It reduces response times because it immediately gets first responders where they need to be.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned. I always got to stop it right before then because the intro for that is actually the one for Open Mic Live, and the Open Mic Live one was about to start. So I always have to cut it off right at that moment because this is the Dispatchers Roundtable, and I will eventually get an intro for this one going. But I am excited to be here with all of you. As always, roll call. Where are you watching from? And please share this broadcast on your page or your favorite dispatch page and throw in some reactions. Always love to get some of those. That also helps build up that algorithm that Facebook has or doesn't have. I don't know. If you watch that 60 Minutes thing, there's a lot of shit going on. So I'll stop before Facebook cuts us off here. But either way, throw in some reactions, share this broadcast. Thank you very much for joining us. This live broadcast is sponsored by InDigital, Rapid Deploy, as well as Carbine. And this is live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. And we're about to get started with the Dispatchers Roundtable. This is going to be round 24, and we're going to be talking about 911 and dispatch, as well as family, friends, relationships, and all different types of things. We're going to be going over some good stuff today. I'm excited to do this and to have my guests here with me. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. And it looks like we've got some people jumping in here in the comments. Thank you very much for joining us once again here. And first guest is going to be Reverend Dr. Edie DeVilbiss. Hello.
Hi, how are you, Ricardo?
I am doing well. And yourself?
Wonderful. Excited to be here.
Yes, this is going to be good. I'm excited to have you here as well. And it looks like we got our
Wonder Woman t-shirts on because it
right.
is Wonder Woman Wednesday.
Damn right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And we've got
mine is cuter than yours.
You know what? It is. The color actually is very nice. It looks great on you. I do dig me the gray. This is one of the original ones. I do have my other Empower one here somewhere. That was purple. I dig it.
Okay. Yeah.
And Sarah's here in the comments, all she's all laughing and everything. That's awesome. Welcome everyone. And next guest here is my homegirl Leah out of Michigan. Boom.
Hello. Clearly I need a shirt.
Dude.
I don't have one yet.
You need to talk to Sarah. What the hell?
I know. I'm just going to have to hop on and order one.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Now, I didn't say your last name because I always mess it up. So
I want to hear you say it.
Hornacek?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Oh, that was a good guess. All right. No, I've heard you say it before. It's just whenever. So I think what it is that when I type it out, I always have to type it out and sound it out like the way it looks.
And then take the extra H out that you added.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yep, I have to do it that way. Gary says, "Oh, poor Leah." Must be talking about the shirt.
Yeah, I'm sure. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
You know something I don't know?
Yeah, exactly. I am so happy to have the both of you here for the Dispatchers Roundtable. And it's interesting actually doing it on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. I did this a couple of weeks ago at 2 p.m. simply because the person who was on it was like 7 hours ahead, and if we had done it at 8 p.m. when I usually do it, it would have been like 3 a.m. for him. So we were doing it at 2 p.m. instead, and it seemed to work rather well. So that's why I wanted to test it again here, doing it at 2 p.m. And we've got a good amount of people who are joining us here, so this is going to be good. We're going to have an excellent conversation, and as always, as we start with the round, here's the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable. Oh man, Jeremy. Hashtag DTBG4, a new hope. Man, what are you gonna do, man, when it does actually happen? Like, if it were to happen, what would you do? Like,
He'll be
would
your
you?
biggest hype man.
I know, yeah, exactly. You have to get a big old chain and a clock and everything for him to be Flavor Flav, and do it that way. So as I said earlier, today we have come together. I actually reached out to Edie for some topics, just to see if there was anything that she wanted to talk about. And she had come out with this topic, and I thought this is going to be good. This is something that I believe we all talk about, but it's always just talk, right? There's not some I guess end game, in a way to go forth with it. And I think we're going to get to some of that here on helping our friends and family understand what it is, kind of that we're going through in dispatch, and especially when we're coming home, in certain ways that we feel, but not just our immediate family, but all of our family and our friends. I'm going to start it out actually here with a story, and it was something that I was telling the both of you, but those in the audience, if you have any questions for us or any comments or anything, please make sure to throw them in there, and we'll go ahead and read them. Also, the questions, we can answer those questions, anything like that. But what I want to start out with is, when I was working in dispatch, of course, like anyone else, I didn't really have a lot of time to hang out with my extended family. Like, there would be some times where we would get invited to things and we would be able to be there, but then there would be other times where we had planned to be there and we would end up not going. And that was mostly because of either a change in my schedule in dispatch, or it was because of overtime. I was getting forced in for overtime and such. And so I was always there. And eventually we stopped getting invited to certain things, which really sucked. And I remember taking it to heart, and I thought, God, why wouldn't, I would see pictures on social media and I would think, well, how come we didn't get invited to that? I wonder what happened. And it wasn't anything malicious. It was more or less the fact that, I was always busy, and it was probably thought, well, they might not be able to come anyway, so they don't get the invite. But that's kind of how it went there. And it was just trying to understand not only the family and why that would happen, but also to try to help them understand a lot of the stuff that I was going through as well. Edie, what about you? Do you have something similar?
Oh, I have a million stories of things I missed out on and how miscommunication with family was difficult. I tried to be the good mom.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get it all done. One morning, my daughter came in. She was maybe first or second grade. And she said, Mom, are you going to make me breakfast? It's time for me to get ready for school. I said, of course. What do you want? And she said, I think I want some cream of wheat. And so I was going to get up and make breakfast. But apparently what I did was fall back asleep. Because a little while later she came in and she said, Mom, aren't you going to make me breakfast? And I said, honey, I'm stirring it. I'm dead asleep. So yeah, poor darling. She did get fed that day, although I think it was a piece of toast. You know,
I mean,
you do what you can.
I know. I was gonna say toast, cream of wheat. I mean, yeah. You definitely do what you can. Now, what were some of the ways, I guess, with with your kids and all, that I guess you were able to kind of explain some of the things that you were going through? Or was
No,
there a way? Was there even a thought to
no.
do it?
No, they just had to deal with the cranky mom. I don't
Mhm.
know. I remember one day coming home after we had a structure fire where we lost some kids, and my daughters were arguing because they're sisters. And I walked in, and they're arguing over something ludicrous, and I just walked in and I grabbed them both and hugged them so hard, and stood there and cried, and I never told them why.
Oh.
Hi, Eleanor. This is the daughter. She lived. She did survive.
What about you, Leah?
Yeah, my daughter is pretty young, but even starting in daycare, they learn how to call 911, and they learn what you get when you call that number. So police, fire, EMS. And at a very young age, she started asking me, "Did you answer any emergencies today, Mom?" Yep. But you're right. You don't want to tell them what it is, or you don't want to explain or get too in depth with it. And so that's always a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
Because they don't really understand yet.
Right. Yeah. And when Logan was growing up, I remember something similar happening. Edie, where I came home and I gave him a real tight hug to the point where he's like, oh. And I'm like, oh, I'm crushing you here because I'm hugging you so tight. And and him asking what was wrong, and me just saying, oh, Dad just had a tough day at work. And there were times where it seemed like I was working so much that we were all roommates. I lived about 40 minutes from work, so if there was overtime, there were a couple times in the beginning when I had that overtime that I worked the midnight shift and I had to be back in 4 hours, that I would go home, sleep for maybe 2.5 hours, and then come right back. And then after that, I started just sleeping in the quiet room in dispatch. And if any of you are in dispatch right now, I just said the Q word. I apologize.
It's all your fault.
Yeah, exactly. But I started sleeping there. And it was hard because I was always there. I was missing certain things. We couldn't have a traditional like Christmas a lot of times because I would be working those times, and I worked midnight shift. So what would happen is I would come home at about 5 or so in the morning and wake him up, and we would do presents and everything and have breakfast, and then I would pass right out. And I would sleep for 3.5, maybe 4 hours because I didn't want to miss anything that might be going on. And then I would have to haul ass and then go back in the dispatch. And that was a hard thing, for my family to take in, but also for myself, because I'm also not taking care of myself at the time. I'm pushing and pushing and pushing to either stay awake or power nap and then stay awake some more. So then, how do we combat that? What happens then?
So what happens then is we crash and burn.
Big time.
Right? You start getting physically ill more often, right? Headaches, stomach aches. I got bladder infections. Woohoo!
Oh man.
Yeah, because you don't drink enough water and you don't get up to go because a lot of times I worked alone, and so you can't get up and go, and you have to call an officer in. Yeah, no. So you get sick. That doesn't help anything. I ended up divorced. That didn't help much with anything. So we crash and burn. Go ahead, Leah.
I was gonna say, it's amazing what you take on in those times, thinking that you're making it better. Sacrificing your time, your sleep, your energy, or whatever the case may be, thinking that you're making it easier on somebody else when really you're truly making the situation a lot tougher on everyone, including yourself, and sacrificing your health for it.
Yeah.
It takes a while to realize that.
Yeah. So I became toxic, which is really not good for the team, right?
Right.
And so we have to step back and recognize that self-care is the most unselfish thing we can do. To set good boundaries for ourselves, to set good parameters for our families to understand that there are things that we need, because there's things they need, right? They need to eat. Kids seem to want to eat every single day. I just fed them yesterday.
Kids.
Every single day. And so, yeah, there's that. So we got to figure out how to take care of ourselves. What did you end up doing for self-care, Ricardo?
For me, it didn't happen until way late in my dispatching career that that I ended up really starting to take care of myself, because for all of those years before that, it was go, go, go. It was tons of coffee, tons of energy drinks, staying awake, trying to, make sure to be the best that I can while still blaming myself for certain calls and outcomes that I had no control over. And thinking that I was leaving it all at home. Or I'm sorry, all at work. Yeah,
yes.
Thinking that I was leaving it all at work, but it was bullshit, because it wasn't. I was coming home, and it was not good. There was no way to turn it off. I would walk into the doorway, and I would be having a conversation with my spouse, but also hearing everything that is going on in the room, my kids playing, smelling the food that's cooking, hearing the neighbors outside, and then coming back to the main conversation. It's like, are you listening? And then repeating everything back. Like, yeah, I was, but I was also listening to everything else, which also, was not helping. But it was, I ended up, really burning out in dispatch. And I was trying to find a way for to rekindle my love for 911. Like, I loved it already, but there was just so much other shit that was going on that I couldn't just get a grasp onto. So for me, though, it was going back to school and starting to do everything that I do now. That was therapeutic for me. That was the first step, was just actually allowing myself to talk to someone, and really realizing that I was the issue. Looking in the mirror and realizing that it was me. So after that, though, for my self-care, it was getting into yoga. It was starting to eat better, because before that I was eating it was just dog shit. I wasn't eating dog
I've heard
shit,
the burrito story.
Yes, that. Yeah. Stuff like that. Yep. Energy drink and a gas station burrito. But also, I told this story yesterday with someone on an episode that I was recording, where I was doing an internship with the IT department for the county, and their building was just a few steps basically away from the dispatch center where I was at. So I would work from 12 to 4, 12p to 4p doing the internship. And then I would work 12 hours in dispatch right after that. So, and then, if there's overtime, that's even that much more on top of that. But on my way to the internship, I would stop at a fast food restaurant, and I would pick up food that was enough for those 12 hours. And I remember rolling up and the person looking at me like, damn, this is all yours. and it was enough that I ended up telling the person one time, this is not this is for me, yes, but it's supposed to be for over a 12-hour period, not all in one shot. But it was still affecting me. I was eating, not eating well, and it was just really bad. But later on, the last 2 years of dispatch was when I really started paying more attention to self-care.
Awesome. Leah, how about you?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I do little things here. I have that problem where I don't really like to say no. If I can do it, then I'll come in, or I'll fix that, or yes, I'll work that. Yes, I'll coach that. It's okay in the moment, not thinking what the long-term effects of making that commitment may be. So trying to take time for myself here and there, eating better, getting outside more is key for me. And we'll see.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's on your radar. You're trying.
Oh, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
Intermittently saying no here and there. So.
Wow.
I know, right?
That's
deal.
huge.
That's a big thing.
I mean, we laugh about it, but it is. It really is. Especially when I think all three of us can agree, we're go-getters. We make things happen. We're going to get things done.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you're that kind of person, I mean, if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. And who better than me?
If not me, then who? Yeah.
Right. If I don't step up, it's not going to happen. And then what will happen?
Right.
And so, yeah. So we take away other people's chance to volunteer. It's really a selfish thing to do, to always be the one. It took me years to realize how selfish I was. And I thought that my family needed to understand what I did more than I needed to understand what they were going through. My older kids were in high school, which turns out to not be the best time of life as far as understanding what's going on. And, I thought they just needed to help more around the house. Pick up the dirty socks. That's all I want you to do. Just pick up the dirty socks. And I think as when I look back, and of course, looking back, you see things differently. So I don't know if I could have done things differently, but I think I could have. And I really think that I should have. I didn't learn self-care when I was in the headset. I was a hot mess. And so I kept leaving. And then I'd go back to it. So I left. I moved to Florida for 4 years. I went back to dispatch in Florida and then moved back to Colorado and dispatched again for another couple of years. The last time I left the department, the chief gave me a package of light bulbs for a going away present. I said, "What is this?" And he said, "We'll leave the light on for you." And I didn't go back, but my heart's still there because I love the work so much. And honestly, dispatchers are the funnest people I know.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I've been around a lot of different people. And yeah.
I think if I could go back in time, I think one of the things I would do, especially with my son, I would go back and explain to him a little more of what it was that was going on, instead of just basically having it as a blanket, oh, I just had a hard day, or oh, this and that. Yeah. I mean, of course, not when he was a lot younger. I couldn't explain a lot of the stuff, but when he got a little older, I could explain a little more so that he could understand, because years later, I'm recording an episode with his mom and I, and excuse me, there was a question that I asked at the very end, and it was directed towards him, and I guess just kind of what it was like, when I was in dispatch, and me missing certain things. And I remember, oh God, I remember him saying something to the effect of, well, it's hard to miss something that wasn't there. and basically talking about me, because I wasn't there. I missed a lot of stuff, but because it was what he grew up with and what he knew, he really didn't have something to miss, I guess, and that's what he's saying. And I remember when he said that, like in the episode, like you can see me, I'm like, oh God. And he goes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Like, no. This is good. Like this is, I needed to know this. Like I didn't know that the both of you were impacted the way that you were, because I was dealing with my own shit at the time as well. And but then, this was like 3 or 4 years ago. Now he's 17, and now he has actually read a lot of what I've gone through, a lot of what I do and what I do for others. And, Imagine Listening, and he's been on some open mic live episodes, and we had a talk, and he actually did a speech. And he's in advanced speech class. Well, he was last year, but he's doing more communication stuff. And he did a speech on the stuff that I do and the I Am 911 movement and how 911 dispatchers are so important and everything. And we've had this conversation where he's like, I understand now. I understand more that you weren't just gone for just because you wanted to be at work. Like you're helping all of these people. They're calling you for help. And you were there for us. You were doing a lot more. I just didn't understand. So for me, that's what I would do if I could go back in time to talk to family members, but specifically my son. That's what I would do.
Yeah. When I first started working, and thank you for sharing that, because I think our families do go through that. And one of the things that happens is Leah was talking earlier about, we get to the information, right? Get to the facts. And so it changes how we try to communicate with people, especially those who are close to us. Sometimes, when you're 8 years old and you're telling a story about what you dreamed, there is no getting to the facts because there weren't any, but somehow talking about it's going to make a difference for you. And a parent's job is to listen and stay awake while they're doing it.
Right.
That was the hard part. Yeah, exactly, because there's so much that goes into all of this, and you're trying to put yourself into so many different spots, and then you just end up spreading yourself thin. And then also it goes into priorities. Where is all of that going? Spread yourself thin while you get fat.
yeah, exactly. I want to look into some of these comments here. I see Jeremy talking about bougie, high class beverages. That I've graduated to that now. Steak and
That's how you start
caviar.
taking care of yourself.
Yes, yeah.
From water
kombucha.
to Costco sparkling water to kombucha.
Yes.
That's where I'm at now. Also,
yes,
it's October, so this is my 3rd sober October now. So I'm 3 years dry.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Dry or sober?
Well, sober, yeah.
Because there's a difference.
There is a difference, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Recovery is not just about
really
not
good.
drinking. Yeah.
Right. But for me, when I would get out of dispatch, I would get home around like 4:45 in the morning, and I wouldn't be able to sleep because I had an energy drink at about 3 in the morning, so I could stay awake to make sure to get home and not go into a ditch because I was so tired. And when I got home, I wouldn't be able to sleep because I would be on that caffeine high. So even in the dead of winter in a blizzard on the deck, I would shovel out a pathway, and I would grill a steak, and I would have like 3 beers there. And there would be people going by, and I would wave at them because I was the crazy ass in a blizzard grilling a steak for steak and eggs for breakfast. And then I would take down those 3 beers, and then I'd finally crash out. But I would only sleep maybe 4.5 hours because I didn't want to miss the rest of the day before having to go back into dispatch. And it was a cycle, and it sucked. It was a bad cycle. It was not a good one to be in. So I'm very happy with where I am now. But it went through going through all of that bullshit, and going to the hospital a few times because I'm having these heart palpitations. My blood pressure is just skyrocketed, and I'm now having to figure out what I'm going to do, because I want to be here for my kids and everything else that's been going on. I do remember one time my doctor saying to me, "You are really stressed out. You need to find a way, especially at work, to not be so stressed out." And I said, "Do you know what I do for a living?" And he goes, "No, actually I don't." And I said, "I'm a 911 dispatcher." And he goes, "Oh, all right. Well, I guess you got to find a different way to be calm and not stressed out in dispatch." I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying, man. I'm trying."
Yeah. Yeah, I could
Um,
certainly look calm when I was in the headset.
right.
Right?
Yes.
Right? Because you could just keep it all in. Where does it go? It gets stored. It gets stored in your body. This is one of the mental health hazards that we have. We have a
Yes.
call that affects us, and we don't have time to process it because there's another call coming in behind it. And so it gets stored. And a lot of times it gets stored in fat cells. So when we do start to release weight, it can be very uncomfortable because feelings come with it. Because your fat cells, as they dissolve, or they're releasing that toxic emotion. And it's really painful and uncomfortable. And yeah, do it now or do it later. You will feel the pain.
Oh man.
I found it's true though. I found being a dispatcher, going from call to call to call and dealing with everybody else's emergency was easier for me than going home and dealing with any sort of situation there.
Yes.
For the long, and that was a very hard realization when it did finally come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can deal with other people's emergencies, but my kids arguing with each other, being late getting home, not being where they're supposed to be.
Yep.
Eleanor, if you're still on here, I'm going to talk about
She
you.
She is on here.
Oh.
Okay.
She said there may need to be a support group for kids of dispatchers.
There might need to. She'd be happy. I think she'd be happy to lead one, because she was 2 when I started in dispatch, and about 12 or 13 when I left. No, 16, I think, by the time I finally left the last time. So yeah, she's a kid of dispatch. So one day she decides that she's going to walk home from school. She was a school bus rider. I was working the midnight shift. I wake up and it's time for her to be home. She's not home. She's not on the bus. I don't know where my second grader is. Were you second grade, Eleanor? Third? I don't remember. Oh my God. But she and her friend had decided they'd walk home. And I was a wreck. Man, I could handle anything. But not knowing where my little girl was about did me in. So, yeah, I'm with you, Leah. Yeah. Tell the story about when you had your daughter. Was it your daughter?
When I almost had her at dispatch, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how much time you spend there. You always deal with staffing issues, you deal with, having overtime. I didn't want to not be a part of that. So I worked right up until the day I had her. And the people on my team, we legitimately had a plan. Like, keep her chair on the plastic, we'll wheel her to the elevator, push the button, the ambulance can come and get her on the first floor. I'm not kidding. It didn't happen like that, thank goodness. But I was prepared to be here up until the last minute. And I think back on that, like, what was I thinking?
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Right. Like, on one hand, I'm trying to be loyal and a team player, but man, that's a touch extreme. So.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, we get a sense of grandiosity, that our job is so important. That number one, my job is so important, they can't do it without me. Right. But my job is so important that my family needs to bow to my job just like I do. That is grandiose, and that is arrogant thinking.
Yes.
And Yeah. Have an extra small headset, everybody.
I do have a picture of her now in a headset. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer is to pay attention to our family and recognize that they have stressors too. We're not the only ones who are stressed out. And how can we help them understand? So it's up to us to help them understand, because they don't. And so when we ever start saying, okay, this is why I'm trying to get you to the point, because my work makes me get you to the point. This is why we can't talk on the phone, because I hate the phone. Don't call me. only call me because I miss you, And so I have this mixed relationship with the phone now. But we have to be able to help them understand. Now, my kids were able to visit the comm center. Were yours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She comes up here. In fact, when I was a dispatcher, she was young, 4 or 5 maybe, and I got promoted into the spot that I'm in now, into deputy director. And I remember her going into the comm center, and she goes, "My mom used to work in here, but now she works in the hallway." I've been demoted to the hallway.
Now she's in a hall monitor.
In the hallway, yeah. It was funny. They still make fun of me for that to this day.
Yeah, I love it. How old is your daughter now?
9.
Great age.
And it's always, some small instance with them, with a kid, with a family member, even with a close friend. I've had 2. One was her. I had come home. I was in one of those moods, and she knew it. And I could tell that she knew it. And she had brought me water and something else. And I just remember like the light bulb turning on, thinking, this is not her burden to bear. Mm-hmm. And knowing that I had to change something. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side of that, we talk about family a ton, but friends as well. This job that we have, this career is so unique, and it is so much trauma. You start talking about it in a normal sense to your friends that aren't in it, and it's like they look at you like you have 3 heads.
Right.
Like, I don't want to hear that. This can't be real. How do you, and it's just, you realize you can't always have that same conversation outside of the comm center that you have in.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of times that happen with me as well, and sometimes, friends asking for more information. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I can't give you that information, man. For one, and 2, that's just not going to happen. Plus, I'm now reliving a lot of that I don't want to relive.
And that's exactly it too.
And then, having to explain that. So I want everyone who's watching this right now and listening as well, that I'm glad we're having this conversation, because everyone is talking, everyone is sharing stories. There's a bunch of stories, actually, information in the comments as well. And this isn't a session where we're just talking smack here or anything like that. We're talking to learn from each other. And we're about to get into more of how do we help them understand. So like with my friends, when I would tell them certain things, and they would ask, and I would make sure to say first, do you really want to know what my craziest call was or my worst call was? Because they would ask, and I would say, do you really want to know that? Let me explain to you how this has impacted me and how it stays with me. And I think there was only a couple times where, friends would say, yeah, I still want to know. Other times they would say, oh, I guess I never knew that. Like, I thought you you were just taking the call and, you're sending out help and that's it. I was like, no, man, it doesn't stop there. I'm with them throughout that entire call. And then I'm there, part of that call, after it has gone on, and it sticks with me. Like, I remember them screaming. I remember hearing, this or that, or, certain things people were saying. I remember hearing people's last breath, and it helped them understand, to where later on they would just say, how has work been? Versus, have you had any crazy shit happen lately? So it took me just being real with them and explaining what the impact has been on me for them to realize, oh, I shouldn't ask them that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if anything, for them to just ask me, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that helped out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
have to take that same approach. You either can't tell them, it's protected information, it's confidential, you're not going to. Do you really want to know? And then there are times, no, I'm not willing to talk about that, or I'm not talking about that. And over the course of the time, you're right. Has work been busy? That's what you get now.
Mm-hmm.
Or have you been working a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Which, great, yes, I would much rather answer those questions than the what's the craziest call you've ever taken.
Yeah, exactly. What about
Yeah.
you, Edie? How have you helped friends? We'll get to the family part, but just friends, when you're dispatching and everything, explain what it is that you do, or maybe help them understand more.
Honestly, I let friends slide a lot
Mhm.
because of what you were talking about with your extended family. You can't go and do. And so, but I had one good friend that we stayed close friends, and she came and did a sit along. And so she understood a little bit about what I was going through, and she wasn't inquisitive about the calls. She was real supportive. She thought I was amazing because you do the whole octopus thing. We've got 8 things to do. You get them all done, and then you just finish the conversation. Because for years, when I was in the headset, I could stop a conversation mid-sentence, take care of this, that, this, that, this, that, and this, that, and pick up exactly where I left off. I can't do that anymore. I've been gone for a long time. And it's real disconcerting because now I'm like, what was I talking about? Because I used to be able to just start exactly where I was.
Right. Or there was a playback.
Yeah, I couldn't depend on the playback. But I do find myself still thinking I could play back the recording on the phone call.
Same.
But I can't.
Wish.
Yeah. Wait a minute. What time did she say? But having my good friend come and do a sit along helped a lot. And by the time, one of the things that I struggled with was when I would work the midnight shift, my mother-in-law would call during the day. And of course, this was before cell phones and before the silence button, the do not disturb button. I love that thing. And she'd wake me up and I'd answer the phone and she'd say, "Did I wake you?" And I'd say, "Oh, it's all right, Helen." And I finally started saying, "Yes, I need you to not call until after 4 p.m. So that was a huge step for me. But I had to do that with friends too, that you got to set boundaries. So you got to be clear. But you also have to be willing to listen. And when they get stressed out and you're like, this is stressful? Really? You're that upset about, okay. Yeah, we can't look down on people because they get stressed out, because everybody gets stressed out at their work. You know, a challenge for them is a challenge for them. And it's not that they're less than, it's a challenge for them. So.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a project that I did back in 2019, and this was actually from a conversation that I had with my spouse, where she was saying, there should be a way to kind of share what it is that you go through, or to help family members understand more. So out of that came something that I started doing, and I hashtagged it, "If I could tell you one thing." And it was a question on if I could tell you one thing about the job as a 911 dispatcher. And I just want to read a few of the ones that were sent in. Because it was very eye-opening on what people wanted to share. And there's actually a few that came in recently through email that I want to put out there as well. But this one here, it says, "I tell you other families' horror stories because I just couldn't bear to have them happen to us." And again, this is if I could tell you one thing. Another one was, "If I could tell you one thing about this job, is that doing this job changed me. I am more cynical, less patient, and hypersensitive to what could happen. And a lot of people were saying, you should turn this into a little booklet because it would help a lot of people understand, how it has changed people throughout this job, but also just to let them know more about it. Another one here says, after hearing so much family drama and so much trauma, sometimes I don't know how to act around normal people. Another one says, I dislike crowds now. I need silence now. When I never needed it before. Long stories are also hard for me to listen to. I do not want to talk about my job at all. And then this last one here, it says, my heart aches for all the special events I've missed. There are no do-overs. I'd be there if I could. I miss you. And when I had read that earlier before we went live, you had said that really hit for you, and it does for me as well. There's a lot of different things that I wish I could have been there for, but having conversations like this, and family members and friends also understand not only the job but the impact that it has on us, and why certain things happen, or why we are the way we are sometimes, I think helps everyone involved. And also for those who are watching this, if you want to read more of these, there's a bunch of them in there. It's on the Within the Trenches podcast page. It's in the photo album, and it just says, if I could tell you one thing.
Yeah.
How does any of those impact either one of you? What about you, Leah?
They all apply. I mean, really, we're unique, but we're not unique in our own group, right? We all miss things. We all have a hard time with the long stories, oversharing, undersharing, not being available, then being mad when we're not called. They all really apply, and it's difficult to navigate until you start communicating on your own behalf, advocating for yourself, really.
Yeah. So.
What about you, Edie?
Yeah, but I look back kind of fondly on some of the ways that we managed holidays, and the fun things that we did. We rarely had Christmas on Christmas Day, but it gave the kids an opportunity to go to their grandparents. We lived in the same town as my husband's parents, and so they went to their grandparents on Christmas Day while I worked, and so we found a way around it. And so having that family unit come together that way was really powerful and really good. When I worked the 3 to 11 shift at one point, Eleanor was in first grade, and I would go and have lunch with her one day a week so I could see my kid. I was going to work when she was getting home from school. And so I'd go to school and have lunch with her one day a week. And she remembers that fondly. And except for there was this kid who glommed onto me because he just needed so much. She was really jealous of him. Poor little David. I don't know what happened to him. But she thought she was pretty cool because her mom came to lunch. And so
that's awesome.
We have to also recognize that our ways of coping can be healthy, and cut ourselves some slack. Give ourselves some grace. Grace. We need to love ourselves into it.
That's one of the other biggest things there too, right? We have to cut ourselves some slack, because we're always blaming ourselves for certain things, especially with different phone calls and everything else like that. But that was one thing that was hard for me, was to give myself some space. As we're talking about some of these, if I could tell you one thing, there's one here in the comments that says, if I could tell you one thing, I no longer have a house phone because I can't stand to hear the phones ring when I am not on duty. I had to explain that to my husband when he found the cordless phone smashed on our kitchen floor. I feel that one.
Yes. But one of the side effects is, for me, has been, I can't stand to hear a phone ring. I will answer the phone as quick as I can. And I don't care if it says spam risk. I'll still answer the flipping phone. Why can't I just let it ring?
Maybe because you want to take care of your warranty or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The warranty is over. The warranty's out on my car.
Yeah.
I have one last chance. If I would just spend more than the car is worth.
It's interesting how the job really does change us. Another one here says, sometimes I just need a hug. I don't need your questions. I don't need your advice. I don't need you to compare your experiences to mine. And in parentheses, it says, for the family members that have been first responders. And then it goes on to say, I want someone to let me feel their warmth and their love after I've been through hell at work. I just need a hug.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we just need to let the tears flow. And that's hard for people. It's hard to be there when somebody else is in pain. And when we're in pain, our families have a hard time being able to give us that hug and let us cry. And so we have to find a way to hug ourselves and let ourselves cry. There are no unimportant tears. When we need to cry, we need to let it go.
For sure.
If I don't cry when I need to cry, I get a sinus infection. It's no wonder I had chronic sinus infections. I really think for me, head colds and sinus problems are unshed tears. I will cry at the drop of a hat. Don't ever feel bad if you see me crying, because I need it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I cry at weird things.
Mm-hmm.
Like award shows when people are happy. Like I get like, oh, this is their moment. I do not cry in times when you think I would normally cry. It's the weird thing.
Yeah.
But at least you do. Like at least you're letting yourself do it.
I honestly feel badly for men, because I don't know, Ricardo, if you struggle with this, but I know a lot of guys that aren't going to cry because men don't cry. And we need to. You need to cry. It's part of the human expression. We live in a culture that says that men can express one emotion, and that's anger. And women can express all the emotions except anger. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. We need to all be able to express all emotion. So if you ever need to cry, I invite you. I give you permission from my lofty heights, whatever that is.
Let it out. I saw Roxy's comment. She cries when she's super mad. I do the same. And then I get more mad that I'm crying because I'm mad. Like, it's like this loop of, but yeah, you just have to let it out, let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is right, Gary. Yeah, I definitely cry a lot more now. I've noticed. What's funny though is that my kids would say, Dad never cries. Like we've never seen him cry before. I'm like, no, I do. Like I have. It's just you're not around at the moment or when it's going on. A lot of times, it's just it's been when I'm sharing stories. A lot of it comes out, and I'm glad that it comes out, because for a long time I not only buried those stories, but I didn't let myself feel a lot of those emotions, and now I definitely do. I've changed a lot of that, and I've changed for the better, and it's been really good. So as we're getting into the closing of this episode, which has been an excellent round for the Dispatchers Roundtable, what can we do? What can dispatchers do? What can we do to to help our friends and family? We've talked about a few things already, being real and all, but we had some information here where you had mentioned to communicate clearly, right? That's one of the first ones there.
Yeah. So there's a method of communication that's called assertiveness training, and it's a real simple thing. When you is the first stem, and so when you and name the behavior, whatever it is. I feel. So, talking to your cousin, when you don't call and let me know that we're having a family function, I feel. What did you feel? I feel left out. I feel like you might be mad at me. I feel dismissed, whatever that is. In the future, it would be helpful if. So there's 3 stems. When you, I feel, in the future. And so that's a clear communication.
Mm-hmm.
People can't argue with us about what we feel. Or, well, they can try, but it doesn't stick, right? Because what we feel is what we feel. And whether we're right or wrong, it gives them an opportunity to say, well, I wasn't trying to dismiss you. I wasn't trying to leave you out. I just know that you're busy, and I know it must hurt to have to say no all the time. Or maybe it's, you've got 5 people in your family, and I bought enough food for 5 people, and at the last minute you don't show up, so I've got a ton of leftovers. That, whatever, but it opens up the possibility of a conversation. Mm-hmm. Now this works not just with family and friends, but with our coworkers, mm-hmm. right?
Right.
Because we can talk to our coworkers. That was the one thing we were going to cover, and we're almost to 2:00 or 3:00 your time. I'm in a different time zone. But we were going to talk about coworkers, but we got to be real with our coworkers too. And be kind, mm-hmm. kind, not nice. Nice says, I'm going to pretend that everything's okay when it's not. We got to be kind enough to say, look, I really didn't like that. Mm-hmm. When you didn't tell me this on that call and I got in trouble for it, I felt completely undermined. And I did not like it at all. And I got angry and hurt. And in the future, it would be helpful if you'd let me know. But maybe there's something I need to hear from you. And so to be able to own our feelings and own what we need enough to share it with other people. It takes tremendous trust to be able to share what we need. And so maybe that's where we need to start, is to trust ourselves enough, to love ourselves enough, to do what we need to do.
It's interesting because kids do communicate like that. Somewhere along the line, we lose it and we have to relearn it, because it really is one of the most effective ways to communicate. And it's strange how through the course of everything that you learn, all that life experience you forget the basics.
Mm-hmm. We think other people are supposed to know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They don't read our minds any better than we read theirs. Right. Now we think we do, right? We think we're right. Mm-hmm. When we tell ourselves why somebody else did what they did, we are 100% of the time wrong. We do not know why other people do what they do, unless we check and they tell us.
Right.
But honestly, think about it. Do you always know why you do what you do?
No. Hands down, no.
I don't know why I don't. I don't know.
Why do I cry at award shows?
Why?
I don't know.
Right.
Oh man, yeah. That first point, communicate clearly. Mm-hmm. We are amazing at communications, but communicating with each other, shit.
Yeah. Communicating with one another and being honest with yourself.
It's definitely a hard thing. But also, so another point here is not to get defensive.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not all about us.
Right.
We are not the dead center of anybody else's universe, just our own.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one there as well, when we're trying to communicate and then hear criticism, constructive mm-hmm. criticism, whichever.
Whatever.
And then you know that not all the time, but sometimes, like for me specifically, I would know I needed to hear this, but in my head I'm like, nope, I know mm-hmm. what I did was fine or whatever, but I was getting defensive, and there's just there's ways around that and, mm-hmm. and ways to just stay open-minded to whatever it is that's being said, because it can probably help out in many ways as long as you let it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, one of the skills we can develop, it's not an easy skill to develop, but is to reflect. And so what I'm hearing you say, Brene Brown does this brilliantly. She talks about the story in my head. So the story I'm hearing in my head about what you said is that, and own it, right? So that if we're being talked to at work about something, a call went awry, and they're talking to us, and the story in my head is that I'm a piece of shit, and I'm a terrible dispatcher, and I should be run over by a train, whatever. That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
And so when we reflect back, this is the story I'm hearing. What is it you're trying to tell me? It's rarely that you're a piece of shit.
Mm-mm.
It might be. I mean, that might be the message, but not usually, because we're not. It's because we do so many things, such a wide variety of things, and all of it is important. All of it needs to be done right now. And there are a million mistakes that can be made. We try to make the mistakes that aren't going to affect somebody's life, but we own every mistake. When we realize we've made a mistake, we beat ourselves up for it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we think we're supposed to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Because lives are on the line.
Yep. All of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So self-acceptance would be a really huge thing. And
yes.
when I get there, I will tell you the path.
I'm ready for the book, and I want it signed.
Yes, absolutely. The path to complete self-acceptance.
There you go. That's an excellent
go.
title.
Yes, absolutely.
You heard it here first. Edie's going to do this.
Sure. Yeah. I'll probably be 99 by the time I figure it out.
Either way.
Yeah. I'm
It'll be
making
there.
notes. Yes. I think the highest form of self-acceptance would be to be able to go back and watch this and not go, oh my God, I can't believe, what did I said that, what?
Right.
Can you believe you make so many weird faces? I make such weird faces on video. I mean, that would be the highest form of self-acceptance, to be able to hear our voice recorded and to see our recorded face. Oh my God. Yeah. Mm-mm. Not there yet.
we had also mentioned this already, but this is one of the points here as well, is to be honest and open with your family. That's one thing that we definitely covered here, but also being willing to hear when your behavior is out of line. Oh, that was a good response there. Because we don't want to hear that, right? That's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, where and it wasn't anyone else saying it to me. It was, years ago, me having to look in the mirror and realize, oh, I'm being the dick. Like it's me. Like I'm having these issues, and then having to work through them. And all it took was for me to just start talking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was also kind of when I started doing yoga, I didn't want to do it for so long because of fear, because I was afraid that I was either going to look stupid or someone was going to make fun of me. And it was the same thing as this, looking at myself in the mirror and also asking for help. Fear. I didn't want to look bad. I didn't want to look like I couldn't hack it. I didn't want anyone to think that this job wasn't meant for me anymore or anything like that. And finally, I just had to just not give a shit anymore and really think about myself, which I never really did. But think about myself and actually start talking and start doing things and not care what anyone else thought, because it didn't matter to them. This was my life. And it was what I needed to do.
Yeah.
We just talked about that when I started running. Well, it's more of like a trot or a gallop, maybe.
Yeah.
But same thing. Like, I don't want to start running. It's horrible. But I feel better when I do it. I need to do it for me. I need to not care what anybody else, how I look when I'm running or whatever the case may be. How how in pain I look when I'm going down the road.
Right, yeah, because then you think when people are passing you as you're running or trotting or walking or whatever,
Yep.
like,
All those things.
I wonder what I look like to them.
Stumbling. I look like I'm in pain. I already know. I feel it. I had one guy pull over and ask me if I needed a ride home.
Yeah.
But I felt better when I was done.
Exactly. It's that journey, right? It's the journey, and not exactly the destination, just the journey into what it is that you're doing. And then when you get to that point, you're like, damn, like I did that. Like I feel a lot better. And the last point that we have here and what we can do for all of this is practice quality self-care.
Yes. Have good habits.
Good habits, big time.
Yes. Yes. So you know the difference between a good habit and a bad habit, right?
Hook us up with some knowledge.
I did.
I know the way you say it. How?
Okay.
What is it?
So a bad habit is something that's easy to do in the moment. It feels good in the moment, but leads to a decline in health. So steak and eggs for breakfast with 3 beers felt good in that moment.
Yep.
Right? But it did not lead to quality health.
No.
A good habit is maybe a little more difficult in the moment, like running, which if you look like you're in so much pain that somebody pulls over to offer you a ride home.
I'm just really bad at it.
Yes. You know, maybe doesn't feel so good in the moment, but leads to better health in the long run. And we know what the good habits are, but we don't just need to pay attention to our physical habits. We got to pay attention to what we eat, to our rest, to our exercise, to our hydration. But we also need to pay attention to how our thought patterns are. Who are we giving responsibility to for what's going on in our lives?
Right.
What's our connection to love? Are we able to love, give, and receive love? How's our temperature? Are we being ice cold? Are we being too hot? Or are we being nice and warm? We got to pay attention to our whole well-being. And there are habits around all of that help elevate us. And when we get better, our team gets better. And when we get better and our team gets better all together, then we can maybe stop having crazy turnover. Maybe we can stop having staff shortages. Because we're in crisis nationwide. You know, I talk to people all over the country. 50% down, 70% down. And so we're working people to death, literally. So, habits.
You know, I will say, as we're talking about habits, those 3 beers and steak and eggs in the morning eventually turned into an almost 2-hour workout every morning at like 5 in the morning, and then crashing out, getting sufficient sleep, and then waking up, and then spending the rest of the time with family. So the habits definitely did change after a while, but it took a lot to realize what I need to do for myself.
Yes. Yes. And man, physical exercise. If you can't sleep, exercise as soon as you wake up. Get a good sweat going. And you'll sleep the next time you sleep. I like to say you'll sleep that night, but for so many years, I didn't sleep at night. I slept the next morning.
Yep.
So that works. It's hard to give yourself permission to do it.
There has been a lot that we have talked about here in this round of the Dispatchers Roundtable, and I want to thank you both for being on. And Edie, where can people find out more about everything that you are doing with Shape Good Habits?
Go to my website, shapegoodhabits.com. I have a freebie on there. It's the 5 biggest mistakes when forming a new habit. And if you want to download that, it'll get you on my mailing list. I do a blog post and a video every week, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. And you can find me on social. I try to post frequently, and I try to interact, and I get busy, and I don't. So, yeah, I had every intention of posting about this for 2 weeks in advance. And then all of a sudden it's October. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? Wait,
Right.
wait, what?
Yes. It has been, again, excellent to have
So,
you on here. And
yeah.
Leah, as always awesome to have you on and to have you share your experience and everything that you have going on. And I look forward to seeing everything else that you have
Yeah.
going on.
I have one more thing, Ricardo.
Sure.
So one of the things that we do at Shape Good Habits is we do what's called an epic quest, where we start a little habit for 3 weeks. And so I'm going to do one online as a fundraiser for 911 Wonder Woman. And I'm starting to promote it now. I don't have the page to sign up finished. And so I'm still starting to post about it. But you're all invited because it is such a powerful nonprofit. 911 Wonder Woman is committed to helping people with their mental health. And we're all crazy here, so we all need it.
Well, that is amazing, and I look forward to seeing that and sharing it out and everything else. And thank you. Thank you for everything. And all of you who are watching and listening, thank you for the job that you do. As we've been talking here, it is not an easy one, and there's so much that goes into it, not just that's part of the job, but also with friends and family, and especially our children and everything. So thank you all for being on. This has been good.
All right, thank you.
So I will be right back here with the both of you in just one moment. And for those who are watching, if you have any comments, questions, or if you ever have a topic for the Dispatchers Roundtable, you can email us. And that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. This round has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy and Carbine. And as always, a big shout out to patrons. Thank you so very much. I wouldn't be able to do everything I do if it wasn't for all of you, and especially those who are here who are listening, sharing, supporting, and just all of it. Thank you so much for everything. Also, the Dispatchers Roundtable episodes, they also have an audio version as well as Open Mic Live, and that is a perk for patrons only, so make sure to look out for those. And then this can be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And the flagship show can be heard 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next round.